Coaches, hope everything is well. We are here at the Hertgang, beautiful surroundings at PSV Eindhoven, because we're going to have a collaboration with PSV this season. We're going to record 5 episodes of our podcast together with PSV, and today is the first recording with Jack Brazil. Jack is the assistant coach of the U17s, and he is part of the group of coaches that is responsible for the methodology. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Jack, welcome inside the coach's room.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We are in the studio at PSV.
Yep. It's a nice place to be. Pitches look good. The weather's great.
Yeah. Did you ever sit here?
No, this is actually my first time inside this part of the building. So It's cool.
Yeah, I never sat in such a studio either. I see sometimes on PSV TV, you see the guys sitting, but now we are sitting here. Cool.
Yeah, we're part of it.
Okay, Jack. We'll go into your bio and what you do during this talk. But I've seen the coach's room here. It's a nice place. You have great facilities here. I'm very lucky that I can be here once in a while. And you have an office, I think, with the youth development phase or a space.
Yep.
Let's call it like that.
Yep.
What's the most important item or part of that space?
I think the most important part of that space, just to set a context, our under 10 to under 17 teams, everything in between is in this office. So all of the coaching staff, head coaches, assistant coaches are all based in one room. And it's the communal tactics boards all over the walls, which create really positive discussion between all of the age groups and all of the coaches. So regardless of the under 17 coach or the under 10s coach, everyone participates in the discussion around different players, different solutions for them, whether they're in a really good phase of development. Maybe we can push them up a level. So the 14s coach can go to the 15s coach, for example, and discuss a player, how he might fit in. And that would go straight to the tactics board. He fits into this position. And one thing that's really good about the tactics boards is our little magnets are pictures of the players. So on the little circles, it's a picture of the players. So they move across all the different tactics boards around the room. These players do, depending on where they're going to play, how we see them potentially in the future, how we see, they've been in the past, and compare other players similar to them. And that creates a really nice individual feel for the player of where we're taking them in the future, and, individualizes their pathway. So around the room, it sets for some really nice discussion, having those tactics boards for us all to kind of collaborate and create not just tactical solutions for the team, but also individual solutions for each individual player.
Okay. So a tactics board is a way to help each other or to share. But the most important thing that I hear is sharing and talking. That's the most important thing that happens there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a funny coach's room. We have, I think it's 6 different tables.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be mixed hot seats, but everyone always gravitates to one space.
Sure.
It happens, and you all gravitate to your age groups. The 17 sit on one table, the 16 sit somewhere else. But by having those tactics boards around the side being communal, it gets people up, moving, and communicating with other people in the room. And then, a pen comes out. There's discussion based on, what do you think to this exercise? What do you think to this? So yes, it's about tactics. It's about how's your team going to play on Saturday, but it's more than that. It's a deeper communal collaboration of, how can we make sure our practice is better, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and what we present to the players.
Yeah. I think it's pretty common for coaches. They want to show as well. They want to share. They want to test. They maybe want to show that they are good or whatever, that they found something new. So that really pushes everybody. And then maybe, once in a while you have a new idea. Maybe if you're the new guy, you kind of wait in the first part. And then throughout the season, okay, maybe I'll take my turn on the board. Is that how it works?
Definitely. I've been the new guy in the room, and I've sat and observed a lot of things. And it does feel like that. You have to almost wait your turn, bide your time till you have a relevant piece of information to share. It's very easy to be that person at the board. You stand there and then go, what was I actually going to say?
Yeah,
so you have
sure.
to have a well-crafted point, good idea of what you want to share, what you want to say, because that creates well-founded discussion. If you go in with some point which doesn't make sense or hasn't really got a foundation, the discussion falls flat.
Yeah, but just to create some context, this is going to be your second season at PSV. You came here last year. Your main, area that you work on is the youth development phase. You are partly responsible of the methodology, you're doing video analysis and assisting. That's the 3 roles you move in between, right?
Yes. So last year I was a video analyst and an assistant coach for the 13s to 17s. So my week would potentially look like video analysis on maybe a Tuesday and Friday for the sessions, and preparation for the games, the pre-match and post-match for the under-17s. On a Saturday, I travel with them to the games and code their games live and give feedback in the halftime if required. And then during the other parts of the week, so maybe a Monday, Thursday, maybe a Friday morning, for example, I'd be with the other age groups. So then I'd be on the pitch and be actively coaching. So it was a blended role. That was really interesting for me to see and get an understanding of the club, and how the players operate, and also how the coaches operate with the players. So that was a really good foundation. And then this year I move on to a role being the assistant under 17s coach.
Okay, interesting. How did you end up here actually?
During the first lockdown, March 2020, I watched all of the Manchester City games from earlier in the season of that year until the season stopped, and I made a big tactical analysis of them. One as if I was Real Madrid preparing to play the second leg against them, and the second just around their attacking patterns. And one of the coaches from inside PSV saw it.
You put it on Twitter or something? Cool.
I put it on Twitter. It gained a bit of traction. And yes, one of the coaches from PSV saw it. We carried on speaking. A year later, I was told that there's some vacancies at the club. Would I be interested in applying?
Yeah.
Sent my CV, came over, and the opportunity arose.
Cool. Do you believe in that Twitter space and coaches sharing there? Is it something that you still use or still actively do?
Yeah, I think it's a really positive place to be. Twitter is a very positive form of social media if it's used in the correct way.
Sure.
And
for football coaches, it's a very positive
very positive for football coaches. We must be sure not to indulge ourselves in some of the negative parts of Twitter. Very easy to faceless, nameless accounts.
Sure.
We have to make sure if we're interacting, it's with people that have real football coaching experience, and they provide some objective, this is what I'm showing, and they provide some context. So when I share, I'm very conscious of, okay, if I'm going to share this with you, I'd really like some feedback myself. And it was very kind that, the coach who saw this piece from me from PSV was one of the people who wanted to provide feedback and have a discussion about the piece, which I think also shows the commitment of the coach himself to improve.
Who was it? Can you tell?
Tim Wolf.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So he connected with you and then things got rolling.
Yeah.
So nothing is a coincidence there.
No.
So the interesting thing is a little bit off topic here, but a lot of coaches that I speak say, I'm not the guy that puts it out there. I will present myself on the pitch, or I will prove myself on the pitch. But you're showing an example that if you show yourself without screaming or without being cocky, whatever, just sharing, actually, it can also open a lot of doors.
Yeah.
It wasn't probably your intention to make an analysis because you wanted a job.
It was for me to get better. In that period, we were all behind closed doors.
Sure.
We couldn't share our sessions because we weren't having any sessions. Nothing was being performed. So then it was, okay, what can I work on in this moment? And, I put myself in the analysis space of sharing some analysis documents. One thing that I would say regarding what you said is I see a lot of quantity on Twitter.
Sure.
But it's about quality. So if I'm going to put something out myself, I'm really keen to make sure I put a lot of time into it. And I make sure it's a really, really quality piece to put out, because you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position when you share your work, and it must be done really, really well. So that when I share something, I spent a lot of time on it. I'm quite proud of it. And then if I get feedback, I know it's well-valued feedback, because this is part of my best work, instead of just putting something together, hashing it out.
Yeah, and if people take cheap shots, okay, I put so much work in there. You can't bother this, whatever. I'm seeing you didn't put in the time. But if you're putting out, okay, very clear. You see a lot. Well, if you go through the rabbit hole of football coaching on Twitter, it almost never stops.
Does not stop.
No,
it's a very deep hole.
Yeah, it's a very deep hole. Yeah. So going to PSV, second season. What do you think? Well, your first impression, of course, you are part of the academy. But what really characterizes this academy? What really, or maybe even surprised you?
Yeah. I think the first thing is the scale of the club.
Yeah.
It's huge. Obviously, everyone knows PSV as an Englishman growing up. one of the big reasons you knew PSV was Ronaldo and Bobby Robson.
Sure.
So Bobby was a big influence for me when I was growing up to want to coach overseas.
Yeah.
So you know PSV based on that as an English person. Ronaldo, Romario, Ruud van Nistelrooy himself, all of the players associated. And then you look deeper into it, the players that come out of the academy. So then when you come here, you kind of realize the scale of what you're getting yourself into and the quality of the players. I remember my first session, I watched it, whoa, I don't have to worry about the technical quality, the execution of, the technical actions here because it's so high. And then as I started to take time and progress, it was more the individual attention to each player. Where are they going with their pathway? Where are we trying to take them? Where do we see them in the future? And that's quite different across 13s to 17s. 17s, we might start to see a bit more of a forward pathway for them, potentially as, say, we see them as a number 8 box-to-box midfielder, whereas a 13, we could see them in 6, 8 or 10 in the midfield. So it's a more rounded program at that age, so we're trying to add some more little skills to the toolkit for them to use, whereas you're a bit more focused and dedicated on, what exactly do they need by the time they get to 17.
Yeah. So going back to the first answer, so the scale of this club and the scale of the academy, that was new for you. What does it mean for a coach, or what does it mean for somebody in the academy that can imagine that there's much more specialists? So you can be, maybe as a head coach, you don't have to know everything in detail. There are people around you. But if you are in a specific role, they expect you to know all the details.
Yes, precisely. So coming into this role myself, one of the reasons I was brought in was based on my knowledge of coaching methodology and the science and research behind coaching and analysis. So that was part of my specialist role, was sort of deconstructing the coaching approach that we have here, seeing what we're really good at and what we can improve at, and then how we're going to take that forwards in a well-established methodology, in collaboration with the coordinators of each age. Okay.
So after 1 year, I'm not saying you're analyzed everything. I'm pretty sure you did. You cannot claim that either, that you know everything now about the club, but you at least have an impression. And it's always interesting because if you're new, you're open to you see with a different eye. And if you're somewhere, if you're at the club a little bit longer, things tend to be a little bit more common for you or whatever. So what really appealed to you in that first part, let's say in the coaching and in the approach?
I think it's...
I'm not going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, it's the challenge of implementing it with all the coaches, because coaches we have a lot of experienced coaches here, have very good ideas and very well established ideas of how they want to work. Yeah. And they're very good at what they do. So then it's about selling them the idea of, okay, this is not me taking something away from your coaching. This is me adding something to what you do. Yeah. Here's how maybe you can add something new. The word improve scares people. It makes them feel like they're bad. But if you add something to your coaching toolkit, it's a positive. So what can we add from, these different things which will make you better? And it's very similar with the players. We have almost a menu for the players of, what do you need in this moment? Do you need lifestyle help? Are you struggling with your sleep? Are you struggling with your diet? Are you struggling with potentially your physical aspects? Do you need some support in the gym? Do you need extra support with running technique, for example? So then we can start to tailor a program for each of the players. Now the next challenge is starting to do the same for the coaches. Yeah. What do you need? Maybe what are you struggling with? How can we provide specialist help for you to improve? Okay, interesting. Okay, individual approach. Can you give me, or can you share an example of such an individual need that a player had, and that you thought, okay, this is what we as a staff can implement, or I'm going to get a specialist here, and that probably was very successful. Successful examples are always fun to hear. But do you have an example? Yeah, so I'll give you an example of one of our defenders struggling with body shape, particularly when defending crosses. So it's a very specific need with a central defender. But we're fortunate to have several individual coaches. So Eric Addo, a defensive coach, spent some time with him spent some time with the defender regarding some video analysis, and then would watch him during sessions, do some specific feedback inside the sessions with him, follow it up again with the video of the session, and then within the games would provide him feedback post-game with some video, potentially on a Monday if the game was on a Saturday, for example. So it was a really positive intervention because he felt like he was being mentored by an idol of his.
Sure.
Because Eric is, a very, very successful player at the club.
Numerous games in the first team, of course.
Champions League,
of course.
high level. So that created a really positive feeling for the player that, okay, maybe I'm not the best at it, but the club are supporting me and Eric is really supporting me. And having him on the sidelines was almost a prompt, a reminder of, okay, my defensive body shape when I'm defending crosses needs to be better. So it was a really positive impact upon the player.
Yeah, so that's a combination of specialists, but also role models that just walk around here. The biggest role model is now the head coach, you could almost say, which is a big advantage of such a club.
Yes.
How would you do that if you were a smaller club, or how would you do such a thing? How did you do such things at your first club or at other clubs?
Obviously, we did it on a smaller scale. It's my previous club in Oslo, Norway. We would use
you're an English guy, lived in Norway, coached in Norway.
Yeah.
Your father's back in England, academy, head of Academy of Nottingham Forest.
Yep.
You're called Brazil, and you live in the Netherlands. So just to make it easy for everybody.
Yes, it's probably about as difficult as it's going to get. Yeah, you can throw a few more things in there to confuse it, but we'll keep it as simple as possible. So my father has a really nice position at Nottingham Forest. My sister plays as well.
Is she any good?
Yeah, she just signed for Tottenham.
That's nice.
So she's good, and I think my mum's still repairing all the holes in the fence.
Kicked your ass in training if she wants.
Oh, she got double the talent because I got 0. That's why I'm not a player.
Thank you, Dad.
Cheers. Appreciate that. It's the reason I'm a coach. You can't play
Those
coach.
who can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there you go. I was very good at watching Match of the Day.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
So,
okay, no.
Yeah. So
back to Eric Addo. No, back to individual coaching at a lower level.
Yeah. So when I was at my previous club, I would say I was the under-14 elite coach of the club in Norway. So my group had 32 players, 13s and 14s together, and we would bring ourselves on a Monday. So the day after we played 2 games of the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. So our recovery day training, we would split everyone into positional groups. And I would use some of our young trainee coaches, 21, 22, 23, who played at a good level in Norway in those positions. They would provide position-specific feedback or position-specific training for 1 hour. So they would feel like they had that element of specialization. Nowhere near on the same level as we had here because the resources weren't prevalent, but we would utilize that experience of the younger coaches that we had and the younger players or the older players to them to support the young boys.
But it's while you're telling that, I'm thinking you could easily, if you were 13, like you shared in the example, have them go watch the first team play, and at the back end you can already talk to the central defender of the first team. Can you come on Monday? Maybe to help out with a session, and then the youngster saw the first team guy play. Maybe he did things good, whatever, and then you already have that.
You create almost a mentorship process.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be every week because especially at amateur level, nobody really has that time. But if it's once in a while, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to create.
No, not at all.
Okay, but here, of course, specialists. This was defending, and then your role in that part. So you pick out that part that you think is going to defend, and then you walk to Eric. So can you help him? You do the analysis in this case yourself, probably, and that's the way that you approach this.
Yeah. So it's speaking with the player, seeing if they recognize the problem first. If they don't recognize the problem, creating the problem in training so they recognize it and questioning them at the correct time so they understand they need help. It could almost make a player a little bit resistant if they don't think there's a problem and you're giving them solution before they realize that there's an issue here. Yeah. So then almost deconstructing the situation. Okay, what is the problem? How is it occurring? How can I create that within the training session so the player recognizes that, or through a video analysis session so the player recognizes it? The player then goes, I could do with some help on this, this, and this, and then introducing the solution of, for example, Eric. If there's some physical issues, then we can introduce them to one of our physical coaches, for example.
Why is this so important to look at individuals instead of your group?
I think it's looking at the group first.
Sure.
So what do we need as a team first, and then breaking it down into the individual from there. So the individual adds to become something more than what the team can offer.
Why do you look at the group first?
Because football isn't isolated. The number 9's movement will always impact upon the 7. The number 8's movement will always impact upon the 6. So if you present to a player, you need to get better at your first touch. Oh, okay, but in what context? Where are the spaces? How does that work? So the first element is, how do you want to play as a team? What's your playing style? What do you want to implement? What is the intention of your team? And then how do the individuals add up to create the playing style? Then deconstruct that back again. Okay, what skills are relevant for the player to be successful in this moment? And how can we make sure that we get the specialist attention needed for the players to be as strong as possible at each one of those?
And now maybe a little bit more of a challenge. So you have, let's say, the philosophy of PSV, and there are some principles there also in the playing style. Mm-hmm. There's this talented kid. He's very, very good, but he doesn't really match the playing style. But he could be a top talent, but maybe not in the style that PSV approaches or has. Would you then try to fit him in the style, or just let him be his own, have his own development, be his own best version? I think because everybody has this, with their team, they have this idea about playing, but this one player, he's pretty good, but doesn't fit your style. How would you approach, or how do you approach such a situation?
Yeah, the first question would be, do his values and standards match what the club desire?
Sure.
So does he work hard? Has he got a good work ethic? So for example, when the ball transitions, does he run back?
Yeah.
Well, those things, if they are prevalent and the answer is yes, then we have something that we can work with. If the answer is no, then he's got to be Lionel Messi level.
Sure.
He's got to be at the top of the tree.
He has to be the outlier then.
Has to be completely phenomenal. And it's very rare you see that ever.
And even then, we all know nowadays that even those phenomenons need to work within the team, because otherwise you cannot survive.
Precisely. So that would be the first thing. What are the values and standards of the kid? Does he live up to what we as a club desire?
Sure.
Or what we want all the time? If the answer is yes, then it's about finding a way of fitting him into the team which does not impact upon our team intention, so how we want to play.
Yeah.
So it doesn't negatively impact upon that, but it maximizes his talent. So maybe we need to change our shapes slightly. Maybe we need to go from playing, a 4-3-3 with 1-6 to then play with 2 6s, and he can play as a 10, for example. So he has less defensive responsibility if that's where he wants to thrive. It could be an outside winger who wants to play on the inside. Okay, then we need to pick a left back who can play on the overlap of him.
Yeah.
So then we start to mold the team, same intention of what we want from the team, the same playing style, but to fit him into it in a really positive way to maximize his development. And sometimes that will also be putting him in a position which is uncomfortable. So it might be that he wants to be a number 10 and he's going to be expressive, but we don't quite get the positive work, ethic from him in the defensive aspect. Maybe he's not good enough at blocking passing lines. Maybe he's not good enough in 1v1 duels. Could be a good opportunity to then play him further back as a 6, as a wing back. So he gets repetition of those things which make him better in the future. So then when he goes back to number 10, he understands his defensive role as well.
Yeah. So, okay, it's not one answer to the question. It all depends on context and teammates and level and potential, whatever. Yeah, sure. I completely understand. If you look at individual approach, that's very important. At the same time, I can imagine that if you have a 13-year-old who just came out of his, what was it, first grade school, or I don't even know how it's called, goes to the secondary school. Yeah, that's it, right? With his big backpack, and he's experiencing all kinds of new things. And then he comes to the club, and then 15 individual coaches jump him. Well, you know kind of where I'm going. How do you make sure you don't over structure their football and don't over push them with all kinds of information, because they're kids?
So that's the weekly structure, is how we do it, to make sure that each day has an individual purpose.
Sure.
So for example, a Monday would be a heavy individual focus day, because after the game on the Saturday, so it's a lot of load mentally, it's a lot of load physically for them to have to overcome. So then Monday will be really specific to them. So the intention is, hopefully they feel that, this is a really cool session because it's focused on me and it's all about me as an individual player. Then Tuesday,
small groups as well. Then
yes.
Always small groups, several coaches on the pitch, 4 or 5, let's say, something like that. Sure.
Precisely. Tuesday we'll start with some individual work again, potentially small groups, or potentially it's in a big group, and it could be some 1v1, 2v2, and then we'll start to tie it into the units a bit more. So the midfielders together. So how do the 6, 8 and 10 collaborate? How do the 7, 8, 7, 10, 11, 9 collaborate? Maybe the side players, how do they collaborate? Then Thursday, we start to link it to the big picture again. And Friday, then we can start to prepare for the game, some specific tactics regarding the team for the game. So then we make sure that not every day is the same individual specialist.
Yeah.
They also have reference to the team. They have reference to how they're going to work within a group and within a unit on the pitch.
Yeah. And then is it maybe head coach or mentor? Yeah, probably you have mentors around here, well, that make sure that everything is a little bit coordinated, because you have individual approach on Monday, technically on the pitch, but then we'll leave them alone when it comes to lifestyle, whatever. Those kids, that's also transitions, or that also is divided over times or periods or weeks.
Yeah, so I give an example of the under-13s last year. They would have some lifestyle sessions, maybe every fourth week.
Sure.
Before they went out to training. So 8:30 till 9:30, they'd have lifestyle with the lifestyle coach, who would talk about their sleep patterns, talk about their nutrition, talk about their habits, with maybe their phone usage. So then that would become something which was novel for them, because it would occur every 4 weeks. And they go, oh, cool, instead of
again and again,
hour,
blah blah
blah blah blah.
Yeah,
so
okay.
that's an example.
Because I had an interesting talk with Robert de Groot about talents and how you approach them, and how we as coaches now. An 18-year-old coach has access to all kinds of information. He can, well, you see football schools everywhere in the Netherlands, for example, and every coach can get access to anything, and he knows everything, so he could put all his knowledge in those players. And I think it's interesting that we find a way together to not burn out these kids. So the top talents, I'm kind of stating with Robert, you don't have to push them. They know by themselves. They know their own limit. And then you have the group below. The top talent is that one kid. You don't have to worry about him. He will make it anyway. And then you have your normal group of talents, which are all extraordinary. And we have to find a way, or my opinion is that as well, that you have to find a way to push them, but not over push them. And that's an interesting discussion, because we also don't want them to be safe. We also want to challenge them. It's a constant balance in how to approach an individual, how to approach them, how to push them, when to back off, when to support him. While I'm talking about this, there's more and more thoughts there. But what are your thoughts there? To how do you see when you can push a kid, or how can you see when you let him go, or is it body language? What's your experience in this?
Yeah, it's experience, and it's learning, but the experience has to be in a reflective manner. So when you do something, you reflect upon it. I give you an example of this Monday. I took the under-18s, and honestly, it was one of the worst sessions I've taken in a long time, because
taking a session means that you lead the session.
Yeah, sure. And I asked them to be on the pitch at a certain time. Some of them were 2 minutes late. I got frustrated at them. Yeah. I asked them why. They then spoke back to me, because they're 18-year-olds. They want to have an argument with you. You can't tell me what to do, Jack.
Jack, you're not even bigger than me. What the?
Exactly. And particularly in their second language, they really want to argue then, because then they can practice all their English words.
Sure.
So then we have that argument. Then I get frustrated. So then when we come to the session, they're already, the back's up a little bit.
Yeah.
So then I need to reflect on that in the future. Okay, maybe then if they're a little bit late, I listen to them first.
Sure.
I reinforce the behavior that is positive. So I say to the people that have done it well, hey, thank you for being here. It's really good. Here's why it's important. Then I don't go so hard on the guys who have caused the issue.
Sure.
Or because potentially it's me causing the issue by being too hard on them for being 2 minutes late. But I wasn't in that mood on Monday. So
this is what you're stating. The example is getting pretty clear, but you are talking about, let's say, 20 variables on the pitch, which are 20 human beings with 20 different kinds of moods. And maybe somebody just got a small little brother that cried all night and he didn't have sleep, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's, as a coach, we once in a while think, okay, I'm the authority here. It's 8:30. Why the F aren't you not on the pitch?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I was there on Monday, because the previous week I took the 17s, and if I asked them 17s to be on the pitch by 1:55, they were there at 1:45. Yeah. So they got used to me, and it was my first session with the 18s for a while, and they kind of went, no, we're not. This isn't how we work, Jack.
No.
So then it's for me then to mold to them rather than the other way around. They don't have to mold to me. I have to find a way to get my approach as positive as possible within the context of their context, because their context, their team environment,
Sure.
the way they play,
The culture that they created with the team. Yeah, sure.
But I didn't respect that. So then when we went to the passing practice, I hadn't thought about what they'd done previously. I did what I thought was good.
Sure.
And then that was a complete disaster because they said it didn't make sense. It made sense, but in the context that I was used to. I completely ignored the context which was relevant to them. The context also is several of them hadn't been selected to go to under-23s for that week, so they were frustrated,
Sure.
they were disappointed, and I gave them this passing practice which wasn't the most enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then so then looking internally at myself, I've made a mistake, so I haven't read the situation before I've gone out there. Then we go into a positional game. By then, it's time for
You
war.
lost.
I've lost them. So then every single rule, if I don't count to 6 correctly, it's definitely a problem. If I don't do this correctly, it's a problem. So then giving points becomes an issue and everything becomes an argument.
Yeah.
And then I've completely lost the group. So then my reflection is upon the experience. Okay, instead of going, it's the player's fault, and I felt that definitely for 24 hours, but then looking back now, having sort of the cold eyes on it, maybe it was my fault.
Yeah.
And maybe there was these things I could have done better. So the reflection is next time I have that experience, I'm going to make sure I do these things, and the quality of what I provide is going to be much better, because the session could have gone fantastically. It could have gone perfectly. I would have learned nothing about the group really in comparison to what I've learned from actually having that experience with them.
And what the interesting thing is here, if coaches are listening to this and think, but yes, this happens daily at PSV, at any team, whatever. Every coach has this once in a while. Of course not Van Nistelrooy. Van Nistelrooy does everything perfect. No. But I think even at top level, you have coach. You thought of something, or you had an approach that you thought this is the right thing to do. I'm going to push it now, and then push the wrong button. It happens. It doesn't, and losing that group at that point doesn't mean that you lose the group forever. You get it back straight again the next time, because that's also a test. How do you deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very valuable for me as well. When I was coaching, I was first team players that were older than me, being top amateur players, whatever. Okay, the young kid comes to tell us what to do, and then once in a while it went completely wrong. There's no authority there based on whatever from me. So yeah, I just had to be, okay guys, what do you think went wrong? And then they become owner of the process as well. So I think it's very good that you're stating this. It's very strong of you also to share that it doesn't matter which level. This process is everywhere.
Exactly. And
if you don't experience it, if you don't experience it, then you have your head up because then you're not reflecting to your environment at all.
And definitely as a young coach, I would blame everyone else but myself, because I was the fountain of knowledge and I was the authority. Whereas the reality is the players, particularly when I come to this level, they're going to have a lot more references of how they can break down the opposition's midfield, for example, than I will, because they're the ones out there experiencing it day after day.
Yeah.
My job now is to guide them towards those solutions and provide the environment for them to practice that.
Yeah.
I didn't provide them the relevant environment for them to do that on Monday, for example. And then the following session on the Tuesday, the ego within me wanted to lead again and crack down more.
Sure.
But then
I'll show them.
Exactly. So then the best thing for me to do was actually be really positive with them, be a friend, step back and let someone else take the session. And the session was excellent. And it went really, really well. So by me, and you know, the ego inside me goes,
oh yeah, you can do it this way.
They do it for this coach, but not for me. But there's also the element of, well, I need to learn for next time.
Sure.
That I messed up with the way I planned that session, because the players didn't learn, they didn't improve, and they didn't give the intensity that I desired from it, because I had a problem in my approach, whereas this coach did this, and it went really well. So maybe there's something I can learn from that for the future. And for myself, it was important to step back, speak with the boys on a more positive level in a friendly way, to almost gain their trust back.
Yeah.
And almost put my hands up and go, yeah, right, I made a mistake.
Yeah. It's almost in the definition of the work of as a coach, because I used to write down, I want to create this, or I want to develop this, or I want to create this type of players, which is complete bullshit, because we are not there to create or develop. We're only there to guide the process. We are not the main.
we are not the main actors here. It's about the players, and we're just, let's say, on the sideline, guiding the process, pushing them a little bit left, pushing them a little bit right. Hopefully, they will find the path themselves.
One thing that was really interesting there that you said is, I want to create, I want this. It's not an I sport, and I see it's a we sport because we all play together, and that's when I speak about the individual context. It's within the team context all the time. So I remember being a young coach, when we would lose, you did this, you did that, I prepared this, and you did that. And then when we won, oh, we did so well together. Come on, guys, we're brilliant. And I remember it so clearly. You know, you do that as you have less experience. The longer I've coached now, and believe me, I've only been coaching for 12 years, which it might sound a long time to certain people, but it feels like not at all that much amount of time, because I'm learning so much all the time still and reflecting upon that experience. But those early days of coaching, when it was I and we, dependent on whether we won or lost, they made me realize that by doing that, I pushed the players away for 3 days because I was putting myself on a pedestal ahead of them. I've done everything right. You're the ones who made the mistake. Whereas there were some elements within the approach which were definitely my fault. So we have to own that loss.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's especially for young coaches that are ambitious. They want to grow every year in a team. They want to age up, or they want to level up every season. That of course you want to do that. But even then you are a good coach if you still put the interest of the players first. And that's very hard, especially when you're beginning. When you have a little bit more experience, you know how it works, and you become more. It becomes less about you, and you start to realize, okay, this is what my job is. I don't think there's any 18-year-old thinks, okay, I am here completely for the players. Nothing is about me. Egoless. It doesn't exist. I think it's something you have to learn, and that has to come to you.
My experience as an 18-year-old coach, I actually took an under-19s team, so they were the same age as me, and it was all my peers. We played in a local semi-professional midweek league, and that taught me a lot about ego, because if I went in with an ego, I was losing them instantly because they're all my peers. So they'd known me as Jack, who would go to the pub with them, who'd been socializing with them since we were 11 years old in secondary school. I was Jack. I was just one of their friends. So then I had to understand that I'm just doing a different job within the team. I'm not above you within the hierarchy. Maybe I pick the team sometimes, and I have to leave people out, but it's on a purely footballing level that I pick the team. I'm just doing another role within a team framework, and that taught me a lot about how I had to handle myself with players. And I still take that forward now when I'm working with 13-year-olds. I'm not doing anything that's more important than if we're honest, player 24 out of a 24-person group. They're still more important probably than I am in terms of the impact they have upon the team, and I must understand my role within that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I am 100% sure that everybody's listening to, oh yeah, I've been there. Everybody has that, because in the beginning thing, I'm going to be the coach and blah, blah, blah. And it's something, it is very, very, very interesting. You said, okay, as an 18-year-old here, but here it is exactly the same, whether you are a top coach that had played a couple of 100 matches as well. You, in the first team, I mean, you have to be there for it. Well, we're not going to continue that. We're going to go hours about this ego thing and what's the most important thing of coaching. But it is something that I think you should really think about. And you have to experience it as well. Mm-hmm. It's also something that at one point you have to think, maybe I should put something else first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ego can really hold you back in terms of, for example, I speak about the 12 years of coaching I've done. If I had an ego, I could have done 12 of the same year. So I could have done the same year 12 times. But by reflecting and recognizing that I'm weak in certain areas, it's a 12-year journey, and they connect and they go together, instead of being, okay, next season we're going to do exactly the same as we did last time because my approach is perfect. Yeah. I'm really good at what I do. But by then decontextualizing that, taking it back a little bit, reflecting on what I've done, it allows me to recognize this is how we're going to change next season. This is how we're going to improve. This is how we as a team are going to make sure that we have a more successful season.
Yeah. the good thing, the most important thing there is also taking the time, because if you, the big trap is that you do not have enough time, whether you are an amateur coach or you run a job or school on the side, or whether you're in professional coaches, which of course you have a full-time job, but we all know it's twice a full-time job. So you can be on the pitch any day for 5 hours and then find some time to reflect, which I think is the hardest part. But okay. Once in a while, Jack, completely something different. We get to sit in a meeting together because PSV is building something cool. And we, with the coaches room, are trying to help with that a little bit. And you are involved. All the coaches are involved. The management of the club is involved. So there's going to be an online platform, which I think is pretty cool. And we are here in the studio, but behind the curtain somewhere there is Mitchell. Nobody can see him, but he's recording very cool sessions.
It's for the best, no one can see him.
Yeah, sure. No, we all know that. You shouldn't. The people, he's been walking around with the camera here on the training grounds, I think, for half a year now, a little bit shorter. Recording several sessions, doing master classes. What's your idea? How's it going to look, do you think?
So it's been a really exciting project from where we started. I think it was last October.
Yeah,
we started on the project. So we're 10 months into this project, 11 months into this project of where we're going to go by making an online learning platform where people from around the world can see what happens within PSV, learn from it, learn what we do, and then apply within their environment.
Yeah.
But within their context. So it has to be a more open framework with how we provide it and how we present it. This isn't exactly what to do. This is, how we do what we do. You have to pick out what is good for you, and then implement it within your own personal context. So the first 6-week block, we have several 6-week blocks that we're going to be presenting, is about giving an overall impression of our play style. So our methodology. How do we attack? How do we defend? What are our transitions? And then how does that apply within the coaching and the training? So how does it look when we take a training session? How does it look within a game? What are the principles or the key principles that we use within within each of those moments? And then how does that look within the phases? So for example, a moment for us would be attack, and then the phases would be the build up, the progression or preparation, and then it would be the chance creation and finishing. So then how do our principles look in those phases? How does it look in the moment? And how does it all tie together to help us improve the individual?
Yeah.
That throughout the year is going to be what, across each 6 weeks, we develop and build to present that across the year. So by the end of the year, hopefully, people who participate will have a very, very clear idea on, okay, that's how PSV do it. Really nice. I've added these things to my toolkit from the PSV online platform, and then this is how I'm going to implement them. Yeah.
So first of all, we PSV, I shouldn't say we I just pushed a little bit in the background. No, is launching the platform that it is inspiring, but it's also something you could copy. I'm not saying you should, but if you want, you can look at the extra, I'm going to try this, and then build your own experiences, because I think that's a completely different thing, but it's not really wrong in copying things to use it for your own experience. And you want to learn why something works or why people do it. So yes, you can do it. You can watch sessions. Like I said, Mitchell did a very good job on recording it and having it very cool for all kinds of effects and whatever. You can take it home, or you can look at it online, take it to the pitch, experience it, and at the same time you're getting more of a background. Okay, why is PSV doing this? So what is the idea behind this methodology?
Yeah.
And what interests me is my impression of Dutch football is it's very evolved. And youth academies are very strong. There is difference in all the types of clubs, and youth, okay, for example, PSV is very focusing on the individual approach. Is this something we can see in this platform?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How?
So as it builds up, we get more and more in detail about how we can apply the bigger principles into the individual. So it starts off on a very grand scale because the team comes first. And we spoke about earlier, the group is the most important. And then how do we then start to break it down to the individuals and how we develop them, not just over one session, but across a week, across a month, across a season. And then how does that contribute to their long-term or even longer-term development to become, hopefully, top-level footballers?
Okay, so it starts big and goes more into detail. Is it also how you should start anywhere without PSV, or is that the way to approach football?
Yes, it's the team picture is the most important. How do you want your team to play? What is the playing style? And that can be impacted upon by several things: the culture of the club, the culture of the country, the environment that you're actually growing the team within. If I take an example from my experience, we did pre-season in Norway in January, February, March. It's -12.
It's completely different.
Then we're definitely going to be a pressing team, because if we're going to defend in a low block, the boys are going to be very, very cold.
Sure.
So then you have to take the environment into consideration, the background of the players, their physical capabilities. You know, they have genetic makeup. The example in Norway is we had on the east of Oslo, where we were based, we had a high immigrant population. So we didn't have the big boys from the West Coast who are ethnically Norwegian, 6 foot or 180 centimeters. The Vikings. We were bringing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in comparison to them to games. So we had to then think about, okay, well then we can't be going to play over. We have to play, sensibly. So then when we're building a team, these things impact upon how we're going to build the team. So the what is the same. We want to play the best football possible, but how we're going to do it, okay, then we have to understand the external factors around that.
And that's something I think is okay if you're going to have a look at the platform of PSV, but any knowledge out there, learn from it, use it, try it, but it's nothing without your own context. In several other podcasts it was discussed as well. It's all fun and games when you think about it on paper, but what kind of players do you have in front of you? What is the circumstance exactly? So here, if you're going to say to the best players of the Netherlands, of the U17s, who maybe half of them plays in the national team, my intention is that we don't lose, or that we don't give away any chances. And then you have the most technically gifted players ever, and you're going to have them defend for 60 minutes. Whatever. That's what they're going to say.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing in Madrid. You have Real Madrid over one side, the superstars, and then you have the workers, the other side, in Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid fully understand their culture. They're the second team in the city, but they're the workers team. And they embody exactly what the club is. They embody what their fans are. They embody what it means. They embody what it was to begin with. So their club is perfectly in line with its culture, its environment. And that is something which is very, very, very powerful. And then when you go and see them in Europe, there's a reason they perform very highly, but they have previously outperformed where they should be. Now I feel they're performing at their level because they've finally found where they need to be and who they should be, because they've found the manager and everything which aligns them. That is a really powerful example of how understanding your culture, environment, and who you are and the external factors can really lead you to being a very successful football team.
And what, in your opinion, then embodies PSV?
We are
your opinion? No, but what does it embodies PSV? That's a better question.
We are a very friendly club, very friendly. We have a relaxed way. I'm an outsider, so I can't say exactly, but from my understanding, from observing, Brabants is a very relaxed place, and it's a nice place. People are very nice here, very pleasant, relaxed. Life is good. So then there's that element of we are very artistic as a region. We believe in sport looking nice. It's an entertainment. It's not going to be something which is going to stress us too much. It's about entertainment and looking really good. So the product we must produce as a club is we have to produce players who entertain. So Memphis Depay. Perfect example.
Gakpo is a great
Cody.
example.
Perfect examples of PSV players because they're entertaining. And this is an art form. This is something which is entertaining, exciting for us all to watch. So then my feeling is we're friendly, we're family orientated. There's a lot of people that can come into us and see, and we're very open to share. This is what PSV is, and this is who we are, and we're about including everyone, finding a way to include as many as possible. That is what PSV is now. Defining that into a playing style becomes something around cooperation, working together, working hard, so pushing each other because we're a family unit. We're
Yeah.
very friendly. We're very together. And then it's all about that collaboration, cooperation across all the moments of the game. So it's a very cohesive plan.
Yeah.
That I think embodies really what Brabant is about, and then more about what PSV and Eindhoven is specifically.
I completely agree. The first time we had the meeting with the international group and with the platform, I came there with my maybe direct Western Amsterdam approach, and well, that was the feeling I had once in a while. I just threw my opinion there, but it was like, okay, no, I had the feeling that maybe everybody was a little bit more held back, a little bit more relaxed. And okay, well, and then I claim, and I shared my opinion, and one of the guys said, okay, in the first we really had to get how do you say this? We had to get used to it, and now I think probably everybody kind of is used to it and values it. Hopefully,
Really good example of the Eindhoven or PSV way. I was the only person in the room in those that couldn't speak or understand Dutch, and all the meetings for the first 3 months were held in English just to accommodate me.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of where the club is. It's about cooperation, collaboration, and understanding, and that's a really positive example.
And the great thing is everybody's very warm, everybody's very connected. It feels, and I think also for players, it feels very safe. So you are here, you know they're going to treat you at the utmost best. That's what if I have a look around, it feels safe. And everybody has their own identity. And there was a story again. So the Ajax is like, there was the identity. Ajax is like the supermodel nobody can reach. They have all the flashy stuff. Feyenoord is your actual real wife. She whines. She's not always wearing the makeup. Sometimes she's great. Sometimes you think, what the fuck? So, and then you have PSV, who's like the sweet girl of the class, or whatever boy, I don't care. And it's always friendly, and there's never an argument. It's just always safe. I think it's true. And it doesn't mean that once you are on the pitch, they're still gonna put it on you, because it's top sport. That's what this breeds, for sure.
Yeah, precisely. I think it's a really good analogy. It is about being friendly, being open, but then when we actually go on the pitch, it's a really demanding environment.
Yeah.
But the reason it's demanding is because we want you to be better, and it's in a friendly, positive, family way of, I really care about you, but I want you to be the best you can be, and we're really demanding in that department. I think that adds an element which is really, really positive to the club.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, I think we covered a lot already about PSV. Is there anything that we're missing?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head at the moment about PSV.
No, I didn't think so either. I think we summarized, and I'm pretty sure the platform is going to give you a very nice impression of it all. You said you are sharing knowledge is important. What do you do to develop yourself? That has great sentence of me. It has nothing to do with sharing knowledge. It's more about development. How do you develop?
It's reading a lot.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time reading. Girlfriend gets annoyed because she'd like to watch a film.
Sure.
And I'll be sat there, and 10 minutes in, I've got a book. I think my attention span is 90 minutes.
Okay.
So she knows if she puts a film on, which is 120 minutes,
you're gone.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
Then I'm not interested. So that frustrates her a lot. But I like to read. I spend a lot of time on my iPad reading books that I've got on there, or reading articles. And it's always the consideration of how can I apply that within my personal context or my environment. Sometimes that won't come to me quickly. And I have several books that I read several times, and then I make notes.
What's the last book you read?
The Culture Map.
Okay.
So it's about how different areas are, for example, how different people deal with confrontation. So, and direct communication. So
direct connection with the last session that you had with the U18s.
Exactly. So it's really interesting for me, because when I look at the direct communication and indirect communication scale, the Netherlands is really close to the direct level, and I'm quite indirect.
Okay.
In relation to that, in relation to an Asian culture, I'm still quite direct.
Sure.
But then you have to consider them in relation to each other. So for me, I hear some things in a meeting and I go, oh, I've got to be careful there.
Yeah.
And I go to have a meeting with my boss, Ernest. I get a bit nervous because he's my boss. But in the Netherlands, the boss and the employee, it's a very friendly, cordial relationship. But in the UK, there's still that little bit of distance. So those things are really interesting for me to read about and for me to understand, okay, well, then maybe I need to be a bit more like this. And if I want to say something which I feel, I can say it here. And people won't go.
I think they even really want you to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they expect you to do it. Otherwise, what's the thing you're going to add?
Exactly.
That's Dutch. That's typically Dutch, what we're saying now.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time. The first 3 or 4 months, people were saying things to me after a session. I was feeling heartbroken. I thought I was terrible at coaching.
Yeah.
But it would always... so in England, we do the praise sandwich. It's very American. This is what you did really well. This could be a bit better. This was excellent. In the Netherlands,
and here, if somebody starts with a positive thing, okay, stop the sandwich thing. Just say whatever you want to say.
Hey, this is what the first time I go was, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad, in detail, and then, but that was quite good. And I walk away going, oh, wow.
Okay, welcome to the Netherlands.
I must be terrible. But it was done in a really positive way. And now I look at it and I go, I didn't understand what was being said to me because it's a direct demanding culture. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I'm told it's a lot safer down here in PSV. So if I was at a club in Amsterdam or a club in that area,
sure,
I'd definitely be questioning, am I really cut up for coaching?
Yeah.
So it was a new thing for me, and it was a new way of learning, particularly coming from Oslo, Norway, where extremely indirect. You would never know if you did something wrong without having to guess it yourself. So it was a tough learning period for me, but it was really cool now. So then that book, reading the culture map, was like a lot of lights going on, a lot of light bulb moments going, right, okay, I see this now. Yeah. So I think updating my knowledge and developing myself is always reading, and I spend less time reading about football now and more time reading about culture, reading about different sports, reading about leadership, reading about, more specific things around psychology, and then how can we relate them to football. Very interesting. Good. Teaching.
I think it's a trend, not a trend. I think it's everybody that is moving up the ladder at one point thinks, okay, the basics, the tactics, the more football content is something that I step into every day. I dip my foot in the pool of that every day, a couple hours a day, several hours a week. If I want to grow, I need to start looking outside of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
okay.
Good summary.
Yeah, it's something that I'm doing as well. I'm hardly reading any book about football anymore. It's all leadership or it's military that I find very interesting because that's bringing teams together in unique situations. There's much more than football, but a lot of things from outside of football can really be used inside of football. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, different discussion. Mm-hmm. Okay, last question. Who should we talk to next, Jack?
So
and why?
Yeah, one of the best coaches I worked with in Oslo, Norway. Portuguese guy, David Ribeiro. Okay. I understood tactical periodization to a level from reading books. But then he made me realize that tactical periodization is this buzzword we're taught. The actual depth behind it and the processes and the programs behind how we coordinate the game and systematically train it. That was an education for me to watch him every day and understand how he does things. He's now the assistant coach of the first team at Vålerenga. And I saw him in the roles of under 16 coach, under 19s coach, and he was excellent at coordinating that approach every day. And he was very good for me as well. He mentored me a lot. Still a very young coach himself to be working at the top level. The learning I got from him every day was quite substantial. And there's a lot of things that I take in my own coaching that are based around what I saw from him.
Okay. Cool.
So I definitely talk with him. He's
cool.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah. Well, we talked to a lot of Portuguese guys. These guys are amazing. I've already said that 10 times. So I'm not going to give all the Portuguese guys a compliment again. But these guys know everything with the Vitor Frada on the front and the whole model, and everybody knows every freaking detail about this. Mm-hmm. They know everything. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to worry about nominating a PSV coach because we have an agreement that we're going to make 5 podcasts with PSV coaches. So any other PSV coach, don't feel excluded from this nomination. Don't worry, you will all get a spot.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so I'm very looking forward to being here in the studio again, and talking to the next guy. And yeah, it was great to have you, Jack. It feels like the regular meetings. We see each other every month.
Yep.
And now, okay, let's just put 2 mics in between and just talk.
Let's have a chat. It's nice.
Sure.
It's been good.
Sure. Good. Thank you very much, Jack.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.